Hello and welcome to the jesterprincecast, the monthly show where I, Evan Simon, picks a guest who talks about anime, movie, art, science, philosophy, and pretty much whatever else they are passionate about. I love people, I love talking to people, and I love being able to say whatever I want to those people. If you like the show, please comment, like, subscribe, and share this video with your friends. And now that that's all out of the way, please let me introduce you my guest, Henry Earl Covert IV. Is that how you pronounce your last name, Covert?
Yeah, that's it. Like covert operations.
Okay.
Most people pronounce it really weird. So, and it's really simple, I think.
Well, I got that speech impediment, so it's kind of hard for me to pronounce the R's at the end of words anyway. So covert. Yeah. So
at least it's not as bad. The worst I've heard is Corvette, and I'm like, where do you even go? Where is that even in the word there?
I gotta ask, like, how do you be like an elementary school kid with a name like that? Like, I'm not like trying to offend your name or anything like that. I hope it like come off that way. But that was a pretty awesome name to have, like when you write your whole name down on like the test.
Yeah, well, I never really it never got told it was cool. I never got told really anything about my name. The only time I would get teased sometimes because my middle name's Earl. When I was in elementary school, Earl. Really funny. I don't know why, but I guess that's a funny thing. But I did get called King Henry VIII a lot, just because I had a fourth in my last name, or in my suffix.
So is that like, we're going to talk more about religion. Now, what I'll do to the audience, what I want to do is we're going to have the first half. We're just going to talk about anime for the most part. We're going to talk about marriage life. It's just going to be full-length, secular talk, as they will. Then we're going to take the second half. We're going to talk about religion. We're going to talk about your life as a pastor. But then I'm going to make those two different videos. So if you're someone who's not comfortable with that stuff, don't have to worry about it. Henry and I have no problem with that. We hope you enjoy this. But if you are interested to see what our thoughts were with that one, so I think you and I, very different denominations. But at the same time, I think, we have some interesting stuff to talk about going into that. And so that'll be our second video. And that video I'm planning on getting real. That's going to be entertaining. So, like I said, if that stuff offends you, okay. That's fine. Don't listen to it. But I think it's going to be some good content. Or if not, because we spent like 30 minutes trying to get this call to work. So maybe technology won't even let me do it. So I'll just do it as one video. We'll see. But thank you so much for talking to me, man. It's been a long time coming.
Yeah, I always enjoy this. Little known fact about me, I used to run my own podcast back in the day.
You did? What was it about?
4 Guys on a Couch.
Yeah, I think I saw it. When I was trying to find your YouTube stuff or connect with you. I saw something like that.
It was when the PS4 first came out, and we used the camera in the playroom to do a podcast. It only lasted 10 episodes. Because I learned real fast when you have that, because there's four guys on a couch, there needs to be 4 people every week. And it became really hard organizing it, especially with us, we were doing it every Saturday. And it kind of, if y'all have heard of, with Kind of Funny, the Game Over Greggy show, it was heavily influenced by that and the style. We each had our own topic. But, all of us were pretty more conservative compared to, because we're all from Texas. We carry our shotguns around and whatever. Not really. It's not really like that.
Yeah, that's funny when people perceive West Texas, they probably think everyone hates, or at least Texas in general, everyone hates gay people, and we all have our own gun, and we all have horses. And it's not like that, at least in my experience. I don't know about where you're from, but not like that at all.
No, we're here in Houston and Southeast Texas is pretty much swamp and beach.
That's nice, because we live the desert in Midland, West Texas.
Yeah.
Nothing but desert and tumbleweeds and oil, because it's oil country right here.
Yeah.
So yeah,
it's oil country over here, but on the processing side,
So going back to what we were talking about earlier, there was one thing I wanted to ask you, and it's that. So your name is Henry. You're Anglican. Is that like the connection right there? Like you're the fourth. So is that why?
No, it's strictly. It's my father's Henry Earl Covert III. My grandfather is junior, and then my great grandfather is senior. So
I was wondering.
it's just something that's been passed down, and like my first son will be 5. I'm trying to get. I want his nickname to be Cinco, but that's not flying right now.
Your fiance not liking that or what?
Yeah, she just thinks it's weird. Yeah. So I'm just like,
So
all. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, so I'm sorry. How is fiance life treating you?
Really, like for us, nothing really changed. But also, we've been together for 29 months.
Okay.
How I remember it is,
Go ahead.
well, how I remember it always is that our wedding's on our 3-year anniversary, so ice -3, or just however months back we are from the wedding. So it always ends up in months. But from really early on, we were like, well, for me, I knew after the first week I'm going to marry this girl.
Aww.
So,
As the first week of knowing her or the first week of dating?
first week of dating. Well, I only knew her for 3 weeks at the point of our first date.
Okay.
So we met on a mission trip, and kind of just went from there. But I knew.
You knew.
What?
No, sorry. Go ahead.
Okay. But what's been different is how our relationship has been, because it's been, we have what I call a Houstonian relationship. I live in West Houston, and she lives in North Houston, and that's an hour away from each other. So constantly to see each other, we'd always have to drive an hour, no matter what. And then what?
So I'm sorry, I'm keep on interrupting you, but just knowing, like, I think like 15 minutes is a long drive where I live. So that's crazy to think about people who live in big cities,
It's pretty crazy. It takes forever to get anywhere. I-10 here in Katy, where I live, there is 14 lanes, and it still gets backed up.
Oh, dang, that's terrifying. I have the worst anxiety of driving. That's why, like, when most kids from my town went to like different colleges, I stayed just because I have like driving was like my biggest fear. So,
yeah.
14 lanes. That I get like the heebie-jeebies just thinking about that. So that's nice. So you have to see each other. So like how often you guys try to see each other then? If you don't mind me asking.
Well, right now it's twice a week pretty much, because I have a pretty free-flowing schedule where she's a zookeeper and she gets off twice a week. Her weekends are Tuesdays and Wednesdays. So one of those days, either I go up there or she goes down here, which these days it's always with a purpose. It seems like this upcoming Wednesday we're going apartment shopping. Or I'm going up there because we have premarital counseling the same day. So I'm just going to spend the whole day. Or we need to get invitations done, or X, Y, and Z, so on and so forth. It's usually, lately it's been all, we have to have a purpose when we're getting together. We have to get this checklist established.
Okay.
So we've been productive. But she was, for college, which helped us get ready for that, was, if you know where Stephenville, Texas is?
I do not. I'm bad at geography.
Okay, it's an hour southwest of Fort Worth.
Okay.
It's in Erath County. They are the cowboy capital of Texas. She went there for the school there is Tarleton State, if you've heard of Tarleton. It's in the A&M system. I was 4.5 hours away, so
Dang.
I would trek up there once a month, or she would come down for some holiday, and we did that for 2 years, which I think really solidified our relationship.
Yeah, man. I have no experience in those sort of things, but I bet if you can survive something like that, then you put it like on good standing, at least for the most part.
Yeah. So we're both just ready. We just want to live together and, just spend the rest of our lives together. It's more of like, why do we have to wait on formality? But she kind of wants her wedding. So it's kind of like we're just waiting. And then I feel like a little bit will change because, we're around each other, 24/7. Looking
So
forward to it.
I've seen pictures of this giant, like, just awe-inspiring manga collection that you have in your office. And
Yes.
you probably have, it's like your own library for manga, essentially. It's really impressive. So,
Yeah.
how do you break that to her? Like, I apologize if this analogy is, slightly inappropriate. It's probably not. But I picture it being like that one scene in 50 Shades of Grey when he's like, hey, I need to show you something. And you open up the door, and it's just like a whole bunch of manga. Like, was that something like you just kind of told her, hey, I guess it's not that big than what you're interested in, but what was her reaction? She's like, okay, it's your thing, or what?
Well, actually, only had like probably 50 volumes when we first started dating, which it was Hunter, Yu Yu Hakusho, and some Gundam. And it was probably a little more than that. I can't remember off the top of my head. But I never really had it on display. And really it was with IGN's Anime Club back really into really following anime, and it became to, like, I think it was, what show was it? It was Noragami, and I was like, I want to know what happens next, and I can't wait right now. So with that, I got back into reading with manga, and since then, exploded. So we were already dating. I just told her, I am getting back into reading. This is what's happening. I'm sorry. She's like, okay, but it's staying in your office. And I was like, okay.
That's fair. I wouldn't want to have, like, a picture of we as Grimly in my kitchen or something like that. So I totally get that.
But
so
she's always embraced my nerdiness, and she actually loves that about me because she's always loves watching me being passionate about stuff.
That's really sweet, man. It's really sweet. Well, I got my own little bit of a manga collection going on because I was kind of like a similar story with you. But my show was My Hero Academia, another Bone show, too. And it was like episode 3 or 4, and I was like, all right, I gotta read the manga. So I ended up picking up, like, I think like the manga was up to like volume 4 or 5 at that point. Picked it up, waiting on a week. Loved it. Now I'm collecting my own little thing. Another little manga series I got recently we've been talking about is I started getting Berserk. Now Berserk is like, I might offend people by this, but my point of this podcast is I can say whatever I want. See, I'm going to talk about a show called JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, right? And I love JoJo. I love JoJo so much, but I always get the sense that JoJo's kind of making fun of the, like, masculinity, Like, just the way the guys are drawn, the way they pose, the way they dress. It's kind of like poking fun at that, which I have no problem with. Poke fun of anything, I don't care. But reading something like Berserk, I'm just like, not that women can't enjoy it. That's not what I'm saying at all. Don't, like, misunderstand me. But reading Berserk, I'm like, this is a manly manga. Like, this is all about just, like, you have this humongous dude with a huge sword who's just wrecking shop. It is violent. It is the most graphic thing I've ever read. It is this is manly. Like, I want to grow a beard and, like, throw the pigskin around. Like, when I read Berserk, that's like I go out hunting. But one thing, though, like that side of the way that I find kind of relatable, and well, let me back up. One thing, I remember like my brother watching Berserk like years and years ago, and he wouldn't let me watch it for obvious, good reasons. But he did show me, like, I see like a clip of like Guts fighting Casca, I think, or something like that. I'm like, oh, I don't know what I really like about this like super big guy anyway with a sword, like super masculine fantasy stuff. Like I don't know what I felt about that. What I really like was shocked by reading the first few issues is how like connected I kind of feel to Guts. Maybe that's just me, but like at the beginning, without spoiling anything, Guts is very like a self-imposed isolation on himself. And you read some of the other chapters, and he's very like the type of guy who doesn't know where exactly he's going. He doesn't really have a purpose. He's just kind of like there to exist. And I'm like, man, I don't know how I could relate to this guy, but I definitely did.
Yeah, and I think you can be like through reading, because I'm caught up, so I've read all the volumes, and I have all the volumes. It's his character arc is actually really good, and the development that he goes through is just phenomenal, and you become really empathetic because you get to see the inside of his mind and the demented nature of it, and from everything that happens to him. And I put Berserk kind of in 3 arcs. You have the first arc, the Golden Age, where it's like a medieval fantasy, everything. He just wants to kill people, cut some people open, warrior for hire. I just want to kick ass. And then he goes through his rage, which is the second arc, is when the story really begins. But then
Berserk actually, like, why it's called Berserk.
Yeah. And then it goes to an arc of showing his human nature. And he's trying to be human again. And it's pretty incredible watching him grow as a character. Especially when he starts opening up to other characters. It's pretty incredible watching him grow. It's like kind of like I equate it to, even though people might not say it, but watching Goku grow up in Dragon Ball. Yeah. You get to see him as a character develop all the way up to, like getting married, and you're like, yeah, I remember when, we got married together, Goku. Now you're having kids. Now you're having grandkids. And it's like, so it's kind of like that I equate it to. And that's one of the things I love about anime and manga as a medium, is watching characters grow.
And that, to me, hits the nail on the head when you talk about why I love anime too. And I always say this, and some people disagree, and that's fine. But to me, the most important thing about any story, the most important thing is the characters. It lives and dies by the characters. And you can have an amazing plot line, an amazing director, amazing everything else, but like bad characters. And me personally, I cannot connect with it. So that's why, I read Berserk, and I see a guy who I'm easily connect with, and it has all these other layers on top of that, but that just makes those layers even more pronounced and better. And that's the reason why I love long-running shonen, because you have thousands of episodes with these characters, and get to see how they grow and develop. It's great. My experience was Naruto.
Yeah.
This little punk-ass kid who's a prankster who's an idiot, and no one respects him. And now he goes from being kind of this is often in the earlier arcs of Naruto, when the character Shikamaru kind of mocks him and calls him weak and says he's just gonna get himself killed and he's a loser. But you fast forward hundreds of episodes later, Shikamaru holds a meeting with everyone around their age, excluding Naruto, and he says, "Guys, we cannot let Naruto solve our problems for us anymore. We need to do our own stuff." And I thought it was a really cool thing, seeing respect from the other. And that's a great thing. But another shonen we can talk about that you really, really love, I really like, and people get upset at me that I like it and not love it, which is weird, but we can talk to that later. How do you pronounce it? Haiku?
Haiku.
Haiku. I didn't really have pronunciation. Let me tell you what. The anime that makes, if like Berserk is the manga you read that's like, I want to, like, I'm a man. Like the anime, like Haiku is like the anime you watch when you want to get like amped. You know, I'm going to go out like run like 100 miles or whatever, you know, like
I just want to play volleyball. That's what it is.
Which I don't even like sports. Like, I'm not gonna lie to you. Like I said, hopefully no one gets offended. But volleyball is a joke where I live, and so I was like, I don't really want to watch this. But then I, finally, like a group of friends of mine were like, "Well, we're gonna watch Haikyuu." I'm like, "Okay, I'll watch it with you guys." And I was like, you know what? I really enjoy this. I think the characters are really good. Season 2, not the biggest fan of, because I think that it pretty much regurgitates everything that happened in season 1, and I think they spend way too long in some story arcs when they could have like developed the characters in like other ways. Like they go to training camp for like what feels like 8 episodes, and I get that characters are developing, but it feels like it's like just the exact same episode again and again. But that being, and like also like I don't want to spoil anything, so never mind. But season 3 though. Like
season 3, man.
I waited, I watched like season 3 after it already aired, and I watched the whole entire thing in a day, and that was like the most emotional experience of consuming a medium in my life. Like I couldn't, like I after finishing season 3, like you get up, I like was walking to the stripes like I do, and I like almost fell just because it takes so much out of you. So let's talk about that. Let's talk about that good old Haiku.
Yeah, for me, I was an athlete. Like I've been an athlete my whole life. I play sports. I play soccer every week with a bunch of guys that I've grown up with, and so that's one of the things that drew me to Haiku. Before Haiku, I never watched a sports anime. I never felt like I would get into one, but since then I've watched a couple. But for me, it's the character dynamics and how they interact with each other, and that camaraderie. It brings me back to the locker room of going in together as me and a bunch of my friends as we started, soccer freshman year, and learning your teammates. It's like that was like learning your teammates all over again. And I actually my favorite part of Haiku is actually the training camps, because from experience, I know when we do training camps or we do long weeks of 2-a-days or whatever, like that little progress, like joy as an athlete and pushing the boundaries and learning new techniques and everything. I just really enjoy that part of it. But one thing it does, I think, really well, is it's unpredictable in a way. Like Hunter x Hunter. That's what I'm going to compare it to real quick. I just thought of this, so go with me. I might get lost, but I think I got this.
You're getting lost.
Because in Hunter, you never felt Gon was never the strongest character, or Killua wasn't either. They were never the strongest out of the gate, and it's not like in other shonen where Goku, constantly breaks the power barrier. Where for them, it's okay that there's stronger characters, and there's always going to be stronger characters. They're going to train and get better, but they're never going, they're not breaking new ground that no one's treaded before. And Haikyuu's like that in a way that it's okay that there's stronger teams. We're going to train. We're going to get better. We're going to push ourselves. We may lose a couple times. Actually, a lot of times, especially in season 1. We're hyping you up. Like, we're going to break this barrier, but wait, I I guess we didn't break the barrier. Okay, we have to work harder to get to that level again. Let's go, let's go, let's go. We're doing it as a team. We're pushing through. We're getting stronger. We're getting beaten down again. But then we're building it back up. And like that sense of unpredictability that you don't know a win or they're going to lose. Like with Hunter, you don't know if Ghana, Killua, or whoever in that main trio are going to win because they can lose, actually. And they kind of build that up pretty well, that it's not like other sports shonens where they're just going to, we're going to win, we're going to win, we're going to win because we're the best team. Or, you know, or like Goku, who we know is always going to win in the end. You know, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's what makes like the idea of a sports anime kind of compelling, is that stakes are high for the characters, but in the grand scheme of things aren't low. Like they're not gonna like save the universe in a tournament for volleyball. So that would be interesting. They're not gonna happen. So the fact that it's just a volleyball game is very important to the characters, and the show does a very good job at portraying that. But at the same time, they can lose, you know. And, you know, it does make it, like, super nail-biting, especially when you watch, like I said, Season 3, and it's like, I don't even know what's going to happen. I don't know. This is crazy stuff. Well, yeah, like, Haikyuu is a show, like, I would say, like, if I was to rate it, I'd probably say the first 2 seasons, I'd probably give it maybe, like, an 8. But Season 3 makes it, like, a 9. Just because of how well condensed that season is. And what's really funny is that, like I said earlier, people are like, what, you give Haikyuu a 9? You don't give it a 10? I'm like, well, sorry. I don't know why you're so upset about that. But anyway, just the pet peeve I had. So anything else you want to say about that?
Definitely all 3 seasons are a 10. Like, but the sad thing is Haikyuu has ruined me for all of their sports anime.
What?
The moment I start, I'm like, this still isn't as good as Haikyuu, though. You know, and Haikyuu would be like this, you know, and that would be so much better, you know. So.
What, you didn't get down with that Keijo?
What?
You didn't get down with that Keijo?
No, I watched one episode and I was like, okay, this is not for me.
Fair enough. There was one thing I want to say about Haikyuu too. Oh yeah. One thing that is super relatable, and I'm really bad at character names, but the manager, the one with the glasses, right?
Yeah.
One of the most relatable things, because I was definitely like the type of guy who would walk up into a girl and they'll just like ignore them and walk away. So I'm like, well, I may not be related to being in sports, but I'm sure related to that.
Yeah.
So one thing I didn't tell you that I wanted to talk about this, but I figured it'd be okay. Speaking about athletics, whatnot, you are very known in the IGN Anime Club for that One Punch Man Fitness Club. And what day is it, do you know?
I think it's like, what's today? I am going to it right now.
You don't have to bother about it. It's not that, but it's been like in the hundreds, right?
Yeah, but that's for this year. You know, we do it, I restart the count every year.
Okay.
And we've been doing it since 2015. So we've been through one full calendar year, and this year it's on 130 right now.
Okay, so what kind of like inspires you? Like, for you don't know, like, why don't you explain it before I explain it than I do? So explain what that is, and then say like,
Okay.
what kind of, like drove you to do that.
So the One Punch Man Fitness Club kind of just started after an episode of One Punch Man during the fall 2015 season, where he shared his workout routine. Full of guys and me in the group, because someone put the meme of what exactly he's doing. I'm like, we could totally do this. I don't know, maybe. Or it'd be cool if we started a workout around this and try to get to this. And a week later, I just started it out of, okay, let's see if this happens. And slowly, it became a beast of its own, just going and going. And what we do, we realized very early on, Okay, this is really hard to replicate that. Doing 100 push-ups in a day, even for the most fit person, lot, and that's going to hurt. Maybe worse than leg day. So it just kind of turned into, okay, just we're using Saitama as kind of our motivator and kind of our mascot in a way, and just because you got to keep things anime related, and so we just posted what we do every day, and I would post it Monday through Friday because Saturdays and Sundays. Well, there's Saturday I kind of took a break. I take breaks from social media, and Sunday is my busiest day of the week as a pastor. So I would make sure I hit Monday through Friday, and so it started in October of 2015. We went through the whole calendar year of 2016, and here we are in our third edition of 2017, and we have quite a few regulars in there that we comment on each other's, like encouraging things as we're going through, and we share, tips and tricks of the trade. We enjoy each other's company within our own little group within a group, what we call groupception. And we've had people make designs for logos to the point where we have 5 logos, and I wrote each one is assigned a day. I mean, quite a bit.
I wanted to do the same sort of thing when I first saw Spice and Wolf, and I wanted to do a one when we just talk about subprime loans. The housing crisis of 2008, and that's probably not the year that was in. And my phone's updating, so it looks like I won't be able to use that anymore. I hate that because sometimes, like my phone, I don't know if your phone does this, but it does this thing when it needs to update. It's like we need to update. It does that for like a day, and eventually, because I ignore it, I'm like, no, I don't want to update right now. But eventually, it's like, you know what, you're gonna update, and it's out of your control. It's just gonna do.
I don't have that. So
I don't have my notes with me anymore because they're on my phone. So I'm going up on cue. So talk about One Punch Man Fitness Club. Now, our next little anime segment I want to talk about, I want to tell you a quick story about an interaction between you and I. See, one time, Evan Simon, being the young kid getting into anime for the first time, he decided, I don't even remember what show it was, but he decided, you know what? Studio Bones is my favorite anime ever. I'm the absolute Bones network, a Bones fan. No one else is second to me. And then you were kind of like, listen here, little boy. I'm going to tell you what, I'm a man's man. And he's dropped some knowledge. You took me to school. You took me to school bad. And I was like, you know what? You're the master. You know more about Bones than me. So I decided it'd be fun to talk about some of our favorite Bones shows. We can go 5. We can go few. I actually tried to do 5. It turns out I don't know a lot because I really had to do some reaching. So, what's your favorite Bones show, Henry?
For me, it is Wolf's Rain. Wolf's Rain. It's one of their. It's an original work by them from the early 2000s. Have you ever seen it?
I mean, it's one of those things. Like, eventually, I'm just gonna watch all the Bone shows that Funimation has. Eventually, it's gonna happen, but no, not yet.
Yeah, it's a very not post-apocalyptic per se, but like the world is it's far in the future. It's kind of a little dreadful, and wolves are on the verge of extinction to the point where they're thought as myths and legends. And still a couple left today. But the thing is with wolves, they're kind of magical, where they can change perception and illusion to the point when a human sees a wolf, they think they're looking at another human.
Okay.
And they act within the world like that. But the thing is, wolves are what will find what they call paradise. If you follow the wolves, you can find paradise, which is kind of like or an oasis or, something in that sense, a paradise. So it's about that journey and the people that are involved and a fight within a kingdom to kind of find paradise.
It reminds me of that one show about like toads that became mushrooms. I watched it when I was a kid. It was really messed up because sometimes the toads become toadstools. Which is apparently
Okay, I never watched that.
I don't know. It wasn't an anime. It was like, some like real Canadian show. I don't know. But
Okay.
one thing I want to talk about, I want to have a serious conversation with you about this. Because there's another anime that Bones does, right? A really great shoujo. I really like it. It's called Snow White with the Red Hair. I'm assuming you're familiar with this, right?
Oh, it's one of my favorites.
Now, I'm only like halfway through it. Okay, I apologize. I didn't get that. But I really, really love Shirayuki. Like, she is like waifu, like wife goals. Besides that, just like a fantastic character all the way around. I really like her design. I really like her personality. She's a go-getter, right? Fantastic character. My bone to pick with that show is the male lead. What's his name again?
Zen.
Zen, the most stupidest man I have ever seen in anime. Because I tried to have this conversation the other day, and people kind of just ignored me. So now it's my show. I'm going to tell you about it because I can. So spoilers for the very first episode of Snow White with the Red Hair, if anyone cares. I don't think anyone does. But anyway, basically what happens is that Shirayuki, she has red hair, right? And the dude, like the prince of her country, wants to make her like his concubine, right? And she's like, no, I'm not going to do that, because, I respect myself. And so she tries to run away, and the prince from like another country who's like kind of visiting like that country is just there's like, hey, no, that's messed up that this other guy wants to make you a concubine. So, they have a little scuffle, and the guy's like, the Prince A is like afraid of Prince B. So he's like, you know what, never mind. And so Prince B, this guy named Zen, he's like, you know what, why don't you move to my country? A chick he never knows. I mean, she helped him, I guess, once, but like a woman he never met before from a rival country is what the information we're giving. Like, they don't like each other that much. This woman is like skilled in like herbology, if that's even a term. Herbs, medicine, most likely probably some poison. And he's just like, you know what? Okay, I think you're cool. I'm like, you're like the prince of a country. Aren't you at least like gonna vet these people? Like she could totally kill you. Now, that's not the show because it's a shoujo romance, but it's definitely a possibility about something that could happen. I don't know. It's a pet peeve of mine. I just wanted to say that. You have any opinion about Zen being dumb?
No, I actually like Zen. And I like Obi as well. He's one of my favorites. I just think it has a good cast where you can actually see kind of like the familial bonds. Like I think I said this earlier, but like character dynamics is one of the things I love the most about any genre or any medium. And like for them, just how they interact with each other and how they look over each other. Because I can't think of the names right now, but Zen and then his two knights that are bodyguards, like they act like siblings, which I love. And then Obi and Shirayuki's relationship, I just love all the dynamics between them and how they get the little quips between each other. It's kind of like in the like the Marvel movies, the little quips and the interactions between the characters that you just enjoy because they're funny or they're just like very relatable, if that makes sense.
So, but before we transition here, I want to talk about my favorite Bone show, which I feel kind of bad because it's like came out last year.
Yeah.
It is what it is. But what I really love is that Mob Psycho 100.
Yeah.
Fantastic show. Made by the same, like, mangaka, I think is how you pronounce it. I don't know. Same guy who did One Punch Man. Almost a complete different show than One Punch Man. Fantastic animation. It looks a little ugly, but like in a beautiful type of way. that Mob Psycho 100. What I really like, I guess, like in depth, I would say is that like I really like how like the whole premise is like Mob, the main character, is like this amazing like almost godlike psychic, and he has these amazing powers, but he kind of like doesn't think they're useful. You know, like he's like, it's not gonna get me like this isn't gonna get me any girls. You know, this isn't gonna help me like do better in life. So it's all about him being like, I'm gonna go, you know, improve my body by working out with guys who are pretty much the One Punch Man fitness club, right? And so,
which I just love those guys.
But what's great is like you talk about like subverting expectations like earlier. Like Mob Psycho is like really good at that. Because, like, you expect these guys to be, like, total, you know, jerks. Because you just assume, oh, well, they're jocks, so they're going to be mean. But they're, like, the most nicest, like, most just, like, kind-hearted people. Like, they never look down at Mob for being, like, way physically weaker than they are. Like, they just want him to, like, do better. I guess like that. Fantastic show. And the fight scenes, which is Bones is what it's known for.
Yeah.
The fight scenes are pretty amazing.
I will admit on that one, I just couldn't get into it in the the Japanese in the sub. It took the dub for me to get into it. Like I tried to watch that twice before I watched the dub when it was airing on Funimation. But once I watched the dub, I was like, okay, I really like this. You know.
Yeah, sometimes that happens, and you know the hardcore like. Not even hardcore, but like some of those anime fans who want to have that argument, oh, sub's better, dub or whatever, dub is dumb. But I think the same thing happened to me yesterday. I started watching that Kyoto animation show Beyond the Boundary in Japanese, and I just did not like the way that the character sounded, like the Japanese version. I was like, okay, I like Moe girls, but you're doing it a little bit too much, right? Like your Moe needs to be like taken down by like 10. And then I end up, you know, looking up like what the dub sound like. I'm like, oh, okay, like I actually like this woman's voice. Like she does a good job. So, then any other Bones shows you want to talk about real quick before we move to the serious stuff?
Yeah, I'm just gonna do shout outs because because Bones is mostly known as like a master of adaptation, and so you have the greatest with Full Metal Alchemist, both original and Brotherhood. Then you have Noragami. You have Bungaro Stray Dogs. You have Blood Battlefront Blockade. I think I got one of those B's out of place. It should be a different way, but I also want to give a shout out to their content from Wolf's Rain to Eureka 7 to Darker Than Black and Deep Cut Ralph Finian, and then of course a dandy guy from space.
Well, I mean, I think it's a miss to like talk about not to mention My Hero Academia, which you did a little bit earlier. And like some people think I'm crazy for saying this, but I haven't seen Hunter x Hunter. Just what I know about it. I think My Hero Academia is like the anti-Hunter x Hunter, because Hunter x Hunter is all about subverting expectations, being really dark. And I know like the anime of like My Hero Academia is like not that at all. It's about let's take all the tropes from the shonen genre and let's not subvert them, but let's just make them the absolute best they can. And that's why, like, I love it because, like, I think there's a big thing about anime nowadays, doka, or name whatever claim to be a deconstruction, and I use that as a silly word because no one knows what that word means anyway. But it was like, oh, like, it's good because it's different. I'm like, no, like, you can have a great show like My Hero Academia that just turns into these tropes, right? And just does them, like, amazingly well. And the animation is amazing, too.
Definitely. Yeah, I want to say this real quick. For Hunter x Hunter, people think it deconstructs the genre. What I think it actually does is it takes the tropes, it makes them realistic.
I see.
So you have to remember the same author that did Hunter did Yu Yu Hakusho.
Yeah, he made the tropes essentially, right? He was one of the guys who made the tropes in the first.
Well, in my opinion, he perfected the tournament arc with the Dark Tournament.
And he just kept on making tournaments after that, and it never changed.
So I think he just did it in a different way by making it more believable, more relatable, no more, I mean, there's OP characters, but they're not the good guys, or if they are, they all have a degrading weakness, and just make it some realisms, like one of the strongest characters, the chairman of the Hunter Agency. Well, he's ridiculously old and he's waning. So even though he's the strongest, he's really old and he's starting to degrade on his power. They always make, whenever he's on, he makes the joke a lot. I'm just not as young as I used to be. Like they do stuff like that. But My Hero Academia, I think it breathes new life into the tropes. That's what I think it does very well. It brings a lot of influence from American comics
for sure.
into those tropes.
Like All Might is straight up Superman.
You
don't think so?
No.
Okay, well, never mind. Continue.
No, I'd say All Might is more like Captain America.
No, that's a good comparison, I guess.
Because Superman doesn't have the same weaknesses.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And Cap degrades over time, just like All Might has degraded.
Go ahead. Sorry.
But I also think there is some, how he looks and how he postures himself. Oh, that's straight up influence from Superman. Let's be honest. But I think as a character himself, it's a little more influenced by Cap. I think there's just a lot of influence from American comics in a good way.
What I really love about My Hero Academia, we don't plan on talking about this, but this is, in the day, go as long as you want. What I really love about, the thing that I think the most about My Hero Academia is, I'm probably going to mess up his name, but what's his name, Byakugo, right? Because he is like, start off, like, okay, as he's shown it before, he's a Vegeta, he's a Seto Kaiba, he's a Sasuke, right? Like, I know this character, and I don't want to spoil anything. It goes to, like, why his character is the way that he is. You're like, that is, like, surprisingly realistic. Like, I could know people who, like, pretty much he's just, like, very I'm going to spoil it, but he's pretty much egotistical because he went to puberty early, and everyone told him how great he was. So now he thinks he's the best ever. But when he goes to UA and he realizes, no, he's not the best ever, he's like, oh, like, it kind of, like, breaks him in a way. And he has to, like, realize himself is, like, that I'm the best because I'm not. And I think, like, his like, journey and, like, Deku's journey, like, how they kind of, like, both mature along the way in, like, realistic way, it's super entertaining and interesting. I love me some Byakugo.
No, I agree. Yeah. It's pretty on point. I do not think he's going to turn into a villain like a lot of people think.
I don't think he would, honestly, either, because I think that, like, I think deep down, like, not someone who he wants to be a hero, like, he wants to, like, his like, hatred or whatever anger is reflected of the part that he's not the best hero, and he wants to be the greatest hero ever. And so, it doesn't make any sense for him to be turned evil to not be, because that's what his dream is, to become, the greatest hero of all time.
Yeah.
So anything else you want to step away about anime, manga, any of that stuff?
I'll say this is words of wisdom. It's okay to step out from your usual genres. So.
Oh yeah, for sure. So, go ahead.
No, I was also going to say, and people should go watch Mushishi because it's amazing.
I saw everyone hates Diggy Bro for some reason. I don't know why. Like, I don't like his opinions, but you don't have to like believe what he believes. I don't get that. But anyway, like he was talking about how, like, when people do the top 9 anime, he's like, well, someone always has to put Mushishi on there. I'm like, yeah, I guess I'll go watch it too. So here's what I'm still deciding. It depends if I can. Sorry, let me get my thoughts in correct. What I want to do now, we can talk about the religious stuff. We can talk about some depression stuff because I have some stories that I might be able to relate, maybe not. We'll see. And if you guys that's not interested in, either way, I'm gonna either cut the video or just cut back now. See you next month. The person next month, I'm gonna tell you this, Henry. Like I'm excited to have you, and I'm excited to have this person too. But how do I say this? I don't want to make it sound like I think you're less than this person because I don't. But what I am gonna say, I would say, be very excited for next month because that's gonna be awesome. So, Henry. We talked for Rob Bros for like a while now. Let's talk about some dark stuff. You wanna?
Yeah, let's go for it.
So I don't know much about this, so I guess I'll let you take the lead. But you said that you have struggled with depression before. So what's that like? What's the story with that?
So for me, I was diagnosed a couple of years ago with major depressive disorder, which is also known as so there's a little different. Because I think one thing we have in our society is now trying to understand mental health, and we don't know our verbiage. So there's a difference between someone being depressed, and there's a difference with you have depression. Depressed, you're in that. Anyone can be depressed. You can fall into a deep rabbit hole, whether, bad events just constantly happen to you. And the other thing is depression, which is really different because a lot of it is out of your own hands. And what I mean by that, for like me with having depression, I have random triggers that trigger an episode or a mood. And a lot of the times, it's not like being sad and like, going straight to suicidal like some people think it is. It's really, most of the time, it's like all of a sudden I have no energy. I kind of don't feel like doing anything, and I kind of feel useless right now. And for me, I have certain triggers, which my biggest two are just feeling lonely or rain outside, which is, in Southeast Houston, it rains a lot. So it doesn't help me.
Real quick before you move on, because you said something. So today we always I read an article about this a few months ago, and it really kind of made me a little bit sad. And it's that people use the word trigger as a meme now,
Yeah.
And it's really upsetting because people nowadays think trigger means I'm mildly annoyed because you used whatever. Say use the wrong pronoun or something. I don't know. Or you said something about some female character or something. I was I'm mildly annoyed what you say, but that's not what trigger warnings is. And I read that some people are afraid to use those terms now because they think when they say, I get triggered by something, which is legitimate, like you're saying, psychological mental health issue, but they're afraid to say that because people just think it's a meme. People just think that they're just being an SJW or something. So what do you have any opinions about that, man?
Yeah, I do. I think some triggers are ridiculous, and I think we misappropriate words, and we should actually be more serious and use words. For me, a trigger, when I use the word trigger, it means something that's completely out of my control. I cannot control the fact that I have an episode because it's raining outside. I can't control that. And the different things that trigger me are completely, I have no control over how my brain reacts to that. It's literally like a flip of a switch when one of those triggers happen. And I think it's ridiculous that people misappropriate words. I have the same thing when we'll talk about faith in a little bit, when people misappropriate words for their own uses or own agendas or their own
feelings or whatever you want to call it, and especially when it comes to mental health, because that's one thing that I take very seriously. That it's not something to mess with, and when someone's talking about it, it should be serious. And that's why, like, one of the things I hate right now is the Netflix show's 13 Reasons.
Oh yeah, talk about that, man.
I think that is probably the worst thing that Netflix could have ever released. It is a very, very dangerous show because it glorifies suicide. Disclaimer, I've only watched 2 episodes, and I only watched 2 episodes to kind of get an idea what my youth are watching. Also, I read a bunch of articles about it, but
Watch Dear White People instead. Just put that in.
What?
Just watch Dear White People instead. That's an amazing show. But go ahead.
No, saying? I'm not going to watch that one.
What do you say?
So it glorifies suicide, and in a sense, it makes it seem like the suicide itself, it wasn't her fault. You know, it was it's the fault of all the people around her. And through the whole thing, it never shows a grain of hope. That point, I've been to that point of being suicidal. I tried to kill myself a couple of times. Every time failed. Hence, you're talking to me right now. It never shows that it gets better. That it's your choice, that you're taking it into your own hands. It sense that, you know, we should be better to each other. And they just leave it at that. There's no sense of, hey, if you're dealing with suicide, you should really go talk to someone. And this is advice from Henry. Counseling is a beautiful thing. And it doesn't even matter if you just feel out of whack for some weird reason. You're not even suicidal. Just go counselor. You know, it's like it's a brain checkup in a way is what I call it. But that sense of hope. And the worst part of it all, because it does have, you know, trigger warnings like you were just saying. It literally says on the bottom of the screen, you know, like, you're going to see images of rape and graphic violence and very disturbing images, yada, yada, yada. But with how Netflix is designed, it's binge this. I'm going to binge that. And a lot of teens, especially, are taking the all in a short burst and not having any time to digest it or process, if you know what I mean by that. And they're not speaking to anyone about what they've seen. They're speaking to each other, but they're not talking to someone that understands that or like what's going on. And a lot of people I've talked to that have watched the show just think, oh, we just need to be better to people. And it's just like, that's not, what is that actually going to do? So, we should educate people, and we should let them know that it's okay to go and get help.
That's, yeah, for real. And so, you know, I feel kind of, I'm gonna be honest, like, I feel kind of like out of my out of my loop here, my wheelhouse here. Because I've experienced, like, as you were saying, I've been depressed. Like, I've been in, like, deep, dark holes that I didn't know how to get in. But I don't, you know, I haven't been checked. Maybe I should. But I don't think I'm, like, clinically depressed, you know?
Yeah.
And I just remember, like, how, like, hurt that felt, you know? Like, feeling that, like, you know, like, so powerless, you know, just...
Yeah.
And just feeling that, like, you know, there's this, like, no escaping. I stopped. And, like, I'm not... You know, saying, I'm not trying to disrespect anybody who suffers from real depression, because what I was dealing with was not real depression, but I do think that the feeling of me not wanting to take care of myself anymore, of like not, making my bed anymore, of not really like cleaning or changing my clothes or shaving, or all like things that happened. And I could just imagine that was like maybe like a 3-month time. Like I couldn't imagine having that be your whole life, and just all respect to people like you and others who can, who overcome that, because I know it is a serious issue that, for one, to be honest, I don't even completely understand, and I might not ever will.
Mm-hmm.
So what do you think, like we talk about depression, you told me when we were messaging that your faith is like heavily tied into, that. So what does that mean?
Well, I guess I'll go this way. So I attempted suicide 3 times. First time, I heard my roommate walking, like getting the keys and unlocking the door. So didn't want it to be an awkward situation, so I stopped what I was going to do. The second time I was about to go, called. So, that stops you out of the groove of everything. And the third time, it was like, that surreal sound in movies, where like the character, whether it hits the floor or whatever, and it just goes silent.
Yeah.
Or kind of like a eerie sound. Well, that's what happened to me, and it was a big booming voice, and for me, it was God saying, "Hey, Henry, why don't you stick around? I have something in store." And when you hear something like that, it's like, it's a come to Jesus moment, like, because I've walked my faith walk all my life, but when I was at that point, I was like very far away, to like the deepest darkness of, what do I have to live for? What do I even have to do with society if to get out of bed? And there's this big booming voice stopping me. And for me, I put that as the moment of my life. That was the day that I gave up my life, it up and pushed it back in. And since then, my youth pastor was the one that helped me cope. He helped me learn tools with my depression because he has the same thing as I do. And then it became a walk that constantly, where I found joy was living into my calling. And as I followed that path, everything would fall into place. Everything, there'd be good days and bad days though, but I kept on learning more and more and more about myself through faith and reading scripture and just following through. And everything is like, those moments where your eyes are like opened up to a whole new world. And through that, he showed his love to me in the truest sense, because my greatest trigger of my depression is loneliness. And I can tell you this, since July 29th, 2014, I've never had that trigger happen to me once.
Good for you, man.
Because Emily walked into my life. And that was like, for me, that's the moment that love was truly shown to me, was because he provided, in scripture in Genesis, it's not good for man to walk alone. And that was God putting it in full fruition for me. And she has become my greatest ally. She's become, that tangible person walking side by side, just making sure that I'm okay and I'm getting through everything. And now, like, the only trigger I really have these days is rain. Like I said, unless the earth stops, pouring, the water cycle stops happening, then that's always going to be there. But it's one of those things where the more I abide, the more I follow my faith. Everything happens for the right. And every time I fall away from my faith, that's when the darkness starts to creep in again. So that's what I mean by my faith is really tied to it. It's like a hope in despair.
I was never suicidal. And so, yeah, you and everyone should know that. But I remember it being really, really, really just, I was always the outcast, and to a lot of extent, I still am. I was always been the weird kid, always been the class clown. And I think, we talk about Naruto. To me, Naruto was like a big, connection for me personally, because it was about who was the class clown, who was the outcast, who was feeling the same things I was feeling at the time, just feeling this loneliness that no one would ever love you or no one would ever accept you. And that really connected to me. And I remember one time it got really bad because I was really upset about this, and I didn't have anyone to talk to. My parents, honestly, I love them. They'll do the best. But I think a lot of times I just thought that when I felt like I was being lonely, or when I felt that, no one loved me, they just kind of just said, oh, you get over it, or like it was my fault, because people would like me if I wasn't so weird, or people would like accept me if I, didn't act the way I did. So, and that it sucks, thinking that way. I remember one time though, it was back when I moved into my stepmom's house because, my dad married a woman after my mom passed, and the room I was gonna live in had all these religious posters on the wall, like stuff saying "Put on the full armor of God" and all these Bible verses and stuff like that. And one day, and I was crying, and I was like, you know what? You don't love me. I was talking to God. You don't love me. So I pulled off all my posters from the walls. I threw this fit, and I remember saying, "Do you have any idea what these people do to me?" And I kind of heard a voice, kind of like what you said, that kind of said, do you have any idea what these people do to me? Do you have any idea what they put me through? And after that, like, I kind of, never since then, and that was like in elementary school, never since then, I never want to be the person to like blame God or others for my issues. And I don't know if that's really pertinent to what you were saying, because like I said, I haven't walked your walk. I would never understand what you go through. But that did something that reminded me about that, because, I too, am a believer. Maybe I'm a lapse, probably. I haven't been to church in years because I felt very, honestly, I went to a youth group. My family made me go to a youth group. They were nice people, they're kind people, but they didn't understand me, and I couldn't expect them to because they're teenagers, right? I can't expect them to do what I was doing. They're all the proper people. They didn't understand what it was like. Oh, yeah, I guess that's not discredit, but they did make me feel really alone in that group. And from that, I kind of like stopped going too. And I don't know, there's not really a moral to that story, but just something that you said made me want to share myself. So, you got anything else for me? Got anything else?
No. Oh, well, I'm good to talk about anything. So,
I don't, like, to tell you the truth, I'm kind of, I kind of don't know, what to say. Like, I guess if I would have to say something, I guess I would ask, and you alluded to this earlier, but for someone who is dealing with these things, like, what advice do you give them?
This is how I learned. First and foremost, talk to someone, whether it's your parents, whether it's a friend. The moment you start letting people know, because like after I found out I had depression, I didn't actually let people know that I was at the suicidal point till about a year and a half later, because that's when I felt comfortable with it. Everything, you don't have to let everyone in like all the way, because it's a process to let everything out. But on top of that, I highly recommend a counselor or a psychiatrist. They're trained. This is what they do for a living. they're actually very good at what they do, and it's very therapeutic. For me, that's how I learned, learning what your triggers are, learning your coping mechanisms. Like for me, if I'm in a mood, I'm like, okay, I need to have little victories and that'll help me get through it. So I set a little victory, which is I'll get laundry done. So that's a victory. I'll, do a little bit of cleaning, household work. Okay, that's a victory. Something positive that you can reinforce yourself, even though you're probably not going to be productive that day, but you can, there's some positive energy going into you. You're getting stuff accomplished. You're feeling something, like I'm getting stuff done. And atop of that, is also find a medium that allows you to escape. So whether that's video games, whether that's reading, whether that's music, whether, so on and so forth, that when a mood is coming on, feel depressed, it's like a little, okay, let's just, go on an adventure or entertain myself. Finding your own little world, which of course for me, that's anime, manga, video games, science fiction, the what, I have a multitude of mediums that I love to get lost in. Sometimes it's okay to pretend in that moment that you're not you for that second. I'm, for example, Aloy, robot dinosaurs, or you're the Phantom Thief in Persona, whatever have you. Just know what helps you get through. And like I said, the biggest thing is talking to those around you, and know that I guarantee there's at least one person in your life that loves you, that is willing to stick around with you through whatever's going.
I hope that this, I'm just going to say it. I think it's funny because for me, my favorite anime of all time is Monogatari. And there's a quote from Monogatari, which a couple of things that made me think about what you were saying. Number one is like, if you putting your life away is just going to hurt those who love you, and it's just going to hurt them. Mm-hmm. And so throwing like your life away for no reason is just going to cause the people you love to grieve. And another quote, which I think is probably my favorite quote from the series, is that, let me see, how's it go? Just because you're not the center of the universe doesn't mean you're not the center of someone else's universe. Because you are important to someone. Someone does love you, and you may not think it, but someone out there cares about you. And you shouldn't throw your life away. And so I think with that, if you want to add anything to what we're talking, anything about time to close up?
Yeah, no, I agree with that. Because to me, like, suicide is the most selfish thing you could possibly do. And it's like that said, like, if I would have committed suicide, I would have, that would have destroyed my parents, because for, like, parents, your kid is the center of your universe, right? And so on and so forth. So I like that quote. That's a good quote. So, yeah.
Well, on that note, Henry, where can people find you?
You can go to my Twitter, but I really don't. I only use Twitter really to win stuff on retweets, to be honest. Which that actually does work. But really, I don't really have any content going.
Okay. Well, you can talk to Henry in the IGN Anime Club Facebook group. That is a thing.
Yeah, and if you're in there, feel free to to join the One Punch Man Fitness Club. It doesn't matter if you're a novice or you're the pro. We'd love to have you around. We love to encourage you. There we go. There's my plug.
Well, Henry, thank you so much. It must have been hard, talking about that with me. I really appreciate it. Thank you for everything you've done. And thank you for being alive, because, I would have hate to not be able to have this conversation with you or meet you. So,
Yeah.
See you guys later. You can follow me on Twitter at @thejesterprince. And hopefully tune into next week's show, because that one is going to be something really interesting, or next month's show, I should say. Something really interesting and also really thought-provoking also. So thank you, guys. And see you next month.